Hello everybody, Tornado Soup here. So today we are going to be judging some books by their covers. Yes, we're talking about comic book covers. Comic book covers kind of fascinate me, honestly, because in a lot of ways they're very similar to YouTube thumbnails. I mean, some of them specifically designed to draw people in based on like salacious images on the covers and brain melting phrases, and they want you to judge them, want you to draw it in, you care about what's inside or not. And honestly, when I'm putting my thumbnails together, a lot of them are in my head. It's like I'm designing a comic book cover, just different dimensions, really, which is why I have so much fun with it. And it's oddly become probably my favorite part of doing this, which is weird, but it's live and let die, as Paul McCartney says. Or he sings with wings. I'm gonna stop rhyming now. But anyway, we're talking about comic book covers and how they've kind of evolved. The best of them, the worst of them, but it's not a top 10 list. I don't do those. I'm thinking about doing a top 10 list on top 10 reasons why I don't do top 10 lists. But anyway, let's just get into it. So first off, on our journey through the world of comic book covers, we've got this classic cover from Teen Titans featuring the four central members, Robin, Kid Flash, Wonder Girl, and Speedy, standing in front of the Justice League under a spotlight. Now, I love this cover for multiple different reasons. It's just very dynamic, with the Justice League kind of hidden in the shadows, and then also very dramatic with, the accusations of murder and everything. It's just really fun, and, you want to read what's going on inside. One of those covers that just draws you in, and that's exactly what a cover is supposed to do. I don't really have anything else to say about this one. It's not really funny or weird. It's just a really great cover. We'll get to some of the weirder ones in a minute, though. Alright, next up, we've got a Batman cover, which kind of falls into the same category as the last one. There's really not much to say. It's just a cool cover. The noose hanging in the forefront, and then Batman just kind of being visibly shaken by the note he sees scrawled on the wall. And it's got that same dramatic quality. Just really draws you in, and you've got to find out what's going on in the issue, even though it might not have anything to do with the contents, which in a lot of cases is what happened. Sometimes, especially at DC, they would even just make the covers before they knew what was going on inside the issue. This was especially prevalent under editor Julius Schwartz, who is pretty much the closest thing DC has to a Stan Lee. He was vital in the resurrections of Flash and Green Lantern and the creation of the Justice League, and covers were kind of his forte, and a lot of the very bold and dynamic and interesting covers of the 60s and 70s were in part designed by him. Obviously, it was whatever artist was doing them, Nick Cardy or Neil Adams or whoever it may be, but he was kind of the one that insisted on the same dramatic flair to him, and then they got however they ended up, and then the writers would just have to make up a story to go along with it, because it was supposed to sell, and apparently they did sell, because DC Comics are still around. But anyway, the cover's just cool. I needed to include it, because it's just too awesome. Now we're starting to get into some of the more fun covers. John Byrne's SheHulk always had this very, what's the word I'm looking for? Let's go with interesting covers. There was often fourth wall breaks on them, or jokes and other other things, other parts of She-Hulk, and they were effective in drawing people in. I can tell you that for sure. And they also had a very way of kind of being topical at the time, cultural references and making jokes about the comic book industry. Like on this cover, for example, she's holding up the first issue of her original series, which was actually written by Stan Lee. And she's saying, all right, this is your last chance to buy my series. If I get canceled again, I'm coming over to rip up your X-Men. Because at the time, X-Men was the best-selling comic book for Marvel, at least. It was always like neck and neck with New Teen Titans. But that was always kind of a fun part of John Byrne's She-Hulk. And we'll see more of that with the next cover, too. See, I love this cover. It might even be one of my favorite out of this era of She-Hulk, just because of how kind of stupid the joke is, while also kind of mixing in brilliance. That fine line between stupidity and brilliance is one that I love and often feel I end up on the wrong side of. But just the joke of, these characters are on this issue. They're not in it, though, because those three characters, Marvel was pretty much positive that anytime one of those three characters was on a book, it was going to sell. Mostly because anytime one of those three characters was on a book, it sold. Wolverine, Punisher, and Spider-Man were basically Marvel's trinity at that point. And Spider-Man's kind of always been a big seller like that, and Wolverine pretty much has been too. Punisher has kind of dwindled in popularity since the 90s. He's very 90s extreme kind of thing. But I just love that joke that, they're obviously trying to sell it, and it's clickbait before clickbait was a thing, and it's so blatant that they're making fun of it, and they're making fun of the tendency of the comic book industry to do things like that, which, is just kind of one of the great things about what She-Hulk did, because that's kind of just how the whole series was. It was, obviously there was the more standard superhero fare, but then it was always mixed with like that kind of very meta commentary about everything that was going on, which is just great. And the fact that it bleeds onto the covers is one of the reasons why it has some of my favorite covers ever. There are also other reasons why it has some of my favorite covers ever, but we're not going to get into that right now. Oh, and finally, we're getting on to some of the fun ones. So far, we've looked at, good covers, and I'm not going to say this is a bad cover, but it's a weird one. I mean, for one, let's just start out with miscolored Archie and Jughead down in the bottom. I know this is kind of just what kids dress like back in the 40s and 50s, but that's Archie and Jughead miscolored, right? I'm not the only one that sees that. That's Archie and Jughead. But then, they're kind of putting their S's backwards in the words, but not always. It's not very consistent. They're not consistently stupid, which I kind of have something against. And then I don't know what Superman and Lois Lane are doing. I think they're trying to dive into the XMen. I think that's what's going on. I'm not positive though. I guess that was that something romantic that people did in the 40s and 50s? Hey honey, you want to go on a date tonight? Oh yeah, sure. I don't know why that's my 1950s woman voice, but let's go with it. Yeah, sure. Let's go on a date. That's horrible. Either way, is jumping into wet cement a date thing? Is that something people do? I'm very confused. But also very happy with this cover. Now we move on to a bit of a more absurd one. I don't really know what's happening here. I mean, it's pretty obvious Superman's just headbutting the prankster, but it's just so weird. First of all, the prankster is weird in general because he's basically Toyman and Trickster and Joker kind of combined, and then like all of the things that people like about those characters thrown out the window, and then he's just there. They don't really know what to do with him. Not even sure why he exists when you can just use Toyman. Superman's got pretty much the same enemy already. But yeah, he's in a jack-in-the-box, and Superman headbutts him. That appeared to be the most effective way to handle the situation, headbutting the jack-in-the-box. And then Lois is just terrified about the whole thing. She's about to faint because a guy is in a jack-in-the-box. I mean, I've seen people get scared of jack-in-the-boxes before, but not like that. It's just weird. I have no idea what's going on. But at the same time, I really want to read it, so I guess it's doing its job. Oh, and this one is like peak Silver Age absurdity. There's a lot going on that I don't understand from the cover, and again, that makes me just want to read the actual issue even more. So clearly it's doing its job. But the idea that Supergirl just like decided to hang out on Superman's couch and then took over the Fortress of Solitude is kind of hilarious, especially when she's using her horse to do so. I'm also pretty sure this is Comet, the same horse that she dated for a while. So that makes the whole thing even weirder. Supergirl and her horse boyfriend are just taking over the Fortress of Solitude. Superman's not too happy about it, but he can't do anything because the horse hit him in the gut, and that is one of a Kryptonian's only weaknesses. It's kryptonite, red sun, magic, horse hitting them in the gut. So he's helpless. But again, it's just that kind of really weird thing that I don't know what's going on. It doesn't really make any sense, but you gotta read it now. And I love it. And finally, we end today's journey through the world of comic book covers with another one featuring both the Teen Titans and Batman, this time from The Brave and the Bold. This one isn't really that weird, but it does have that same kind of who knows what's going on factor to it that is a component of a lot of great comic book covers. And it's, again, dynamic, and it has a speech bubble, which I think always helps. And just, Robin saying clobber Batman is kind of odd. It's like the first Titans trailer where he says the word that I'm not going to say, and then Batman. Just clobber Batman. So, I love it. It's another one where you just gotta read what's happening. That's all for today. There's so many covers, though, that I could do. There were so many that I cut from this video, even. If you have any suggestions on covers that you would like me to talk about, why don't you put them down in the comments below, and maybe I'll get around to looking at them. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great day.